Hi folks, welcome back to my channel and another video about the Canon EOS R1, which is highly anticipated despite the fact Canon still haven't actually officially announced that this camera is indeed in production. Now, I said this is my second video about the R1, and just like the first video, I don't want to stand here and just give you the information that you already can find out by going to read another blog or copying someone else's hard work. Instead, while I will talk about some of the leaks and rumours out there, I kind of want to add some context to it and also talk around the subject a little bit more. So let's jump in to the latest news and rumours about the Canon EOS R1. So back in late 2022, I did a video about the Canon EOS R1 that was still, at that point, as it is now, not officially confirmed to be coming. That said, it is a bit of a poorly kept secret that it will be released by Canon and it will become the Canon flagship camera. Now, in my video last year, I predicted we'd get that announcement in Q2 or Q3 of 2023, the calendar year, not the financial year. And we are just now at the end of Q2, so I thought it'd be a good idea to do a little update of where we're at. Well, as I said, nothing's dropped in Q2, and I'm beginning to get a little bit skeptical about whether we'll hear anything official in Q3, either that is July through till the end of September. I think what's more likely is that announcement now will probably be, if not right at the end of Q3, maybe in a couple of months at the end of the year, November, December time, and it will not carry that much information other than confirming that this camera is on the way. Now, the excellent Canon Rumours website, I'm nothing to do with it, I'm not paid to say it or anything. Go and check those guys out because you get all the best information and all the full leaks and reports on the different, the R1 and all the other Canon products they cover. But those guys are basically saying that from what they understand, the announcement is going to be quite a long and drawn out affair, and that doesn't surprise me at all. Canon will want to generate as much buzz and as much kind of high profile chatter about the R1 as they possibly can. So as I said, I think the initial announcement when that comes will just be confirming that this body is in production. When we get into early 2024, assuming that announcement has come sometime at the end of 2023, I think that is when we'll start to get a little bit more of a sense of what this camera can do. Canon, I think, will likely tease some of the high profile specs out probably maybe January, February time, and then after that we'll see at some point a full update about what this camera will have in it, maybe as late as March, April, possibly even May. Now, the reason I am predicting still all this will come before next summer is because if you're familiar with the history of the Canon 1DX range of DSLR cameras, they always released a new body Canon right before the Summer Olympic Games. Now, if you're up with your sports, you'll know that the next Olympic Games are scheduled to take place in Paris next summer. I think they start in July, could be August, but I'm pretty sure it is in July. Now, assuming they want the R1 to follow the same kind of release cycle as those that have gone before it, expect that camera to be ready on pre-order sometime in the spring, ready for the bodies to come out and be able to you to buy if you have all that money in your pocket sometime before those games kick off. That is so probably all the top professional photographers heading over to that event will be traveling with the R1 in hand. Now, we'd also expect to see some of Canon's trusted ambassadors and testers and professional photographers to be out and about with maybe little covert models of the R1 in early next year, possibly the back end of this year, but I'd expect it will be early next year. And what they'll be doing is they'll be putting it through its paces in the real world, making sure there's nothing Canon have overlooked, maybe giving some feedback as to any amends, maybe not so much to the hardware, but maybe the firmware within the camera. All of that will be done as well, probably early 24, I'm guessing at this point anyway. Now, let's start at the beginning as far as specs are concerned. If you're not already aware, the R in front of R1 or R3, R5, R6 in the Canon range, that is basically signals that it is part of Canon's mirrorless range of cameras. It is safe to assume that the Canon R1 is definitely going to be a mirrorless camera. It will also be a full frame camera. And we know that not only because of the name, but also because Canon have essentially confirmed last year or so that the 1DX range of DSLR cameras and all DSLR development has now come to an end at Canon, and it is all about the mirrorless future. So the R1 will be a full frame mirrorless camera. Now the R3, when that came out last year, was a really exciting release by Canon. They're probably their most impressive mirrorless camera body to date. It did have a lot of great functionality, but it also had a couple of things holding it back slightly. And while some people kind of consider it the unofficial flagship of the Canon range, it's not. Essentially, that is still the 1DX Mark III, albeit that range is now retired, and the R1 will become the Canon flagship body. Now, of the things that held the R3 back, two of the most important were it still suffered, less than previous models, but it still suffered with rolling shutter when using the electric shutter. Now, on that, mirrorless cameras essentially have a mechanical shutter and an electronic shutter. Now, the mechanical shutter is slower than electronic shutter. The electronic shutter is what you're going to see the really big frames per second advertised on when you go to look at new mirrorless cameras in the shop or online, and you see capable of 20 frames per second or 40 frames per second. That is the electric shutter. So what that means is if the R1 comes out with the electric shutter, then it is going to have to find out the rolling shutter. And we say that because there is some speculation on the Canon Rumours website that it is going to have a global shutter on the R1, and that means no longer mechanical and electronic, just one global shutter. Now, if that turns out to be the case, you can rest assured from that the Canon are confident rolling shutter is a thing of the past. And when I talk about rolling shutter, I just mean if you're taking photo of football, for example, occasionally the football will become warped and it won't be quite as round and spherical as it should be. It can be any object really that's traveling at speed when you're hitting those fast speeds on the electric shutter. Things become a little bit warped and misshapen and skewed in the frame. That is what we mean by rolling shutter. I don't think there's a mirrorless Canon body been released that doesn't, at least at sometimes, suffer from rolling shutter. The other thing that let the R3 down was the megapixels, and it was only 24.1 megapixels on the R3. Now, the reason that can be a problem is when you're resizing an image, cropping an image as a photographer, if you've only got 24.1 megapixels in your image, that image can lose a little bit of detail and quality as you kind of crop that and zoom into the middle part of the image. The R1 is predicted now to have 45 megapixels, so that will get around that problem by almost doubling the amount of pixels that the R3 had. Now, it was rumoured that it'd be something like 80 or 85 megapixels on the R1. That's almost certainly not going to be the case, because if you think about it, the bigger the megapixels, the bigger the resolution and the file size of the image, because you've got more in the image, more quality, more depth, more detail, more megapixels ultimately, and that impacts the file size as well. So if you had an 80 or a camera knocking out 80 megapixel photographs and images, when you are trying to work with them either at pitch side or maybe at an event afterwards when you got a few hundred or a few thousand, that is going to disrupt your workflow slightly, and it's going to slow you down and clog your laptop and your hard drives up twice as quick. So I think Canon think they've hit the sweet spot by way of hitting around 45 megapixels, but it'll certainly be interesting to see. Now, the R1 is also going to have a nice big OLED screen, apparently the biggest screen on any of their camera bodies so far. It's going to have a modern, ergonomically designed body that I'm predicting is going to be around the size of the R3, maybe a fraction bigger. If you want a full rundown of all of the information that's currently leaked out or reported or speculated on, I'm going to drop the Canon Rumours article in the bottom because I don't want to rob their guys' information and give it as my own. I just want to talk about the bits that I know about or have some context to add or an opinion on at least. So let's talk about the R1 pricing, and this is likely to be eye-watering. I think I predicted in my 2022 video that this was going to come out in the UK at around £7,000 to £8,000, kind of following the example set by other bodies. And I'm going to stick to that. I can't see them certainly getting any cheaper, and I hope it doesn't get any higher. But given inflating costs in just about every industry, in just about every country in the world right now, it could obviously increase in price further beyond the £7,000 or £8,000. Now, the real positive, if you like, of having such an expensive body is that for photographers like me and like a lot of you guys watching this, I'm guessing, who would love to have the latest gear but can't, they will shop in a used market. I shop in a used market whenever I go for a new camera body or lens. And so when the R1 comes out, or right before it's due to come out, you're going to see maybe the 1DX Mark III, certainly the Mark II, maybe the Canon R3, all those types of bodies in the used market are likely to really come down in price. When the R1 is available, that'll take another little hit, I think, and go down again, all those other prices. And that is because so many photographers will be, professionals that is, will be part Xing their gear for the latest R1. So there are benefits for us photographers who kind of shop in the used market, in that we'll still be able to benefit from the release, hopefully in some way, thanks to the fall in prices there. Okay, I'm gonna leave that video here. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you have enjoyed it, and I will keep an eye on all the developments of the R1, and I'll see you on the next video.